What dark secret are you hiding from everyone? When I was a teenager, I worked at a novelty tourist shop near me. Being the idiot that I was, I stole a wad of cash from the store. It was $100 in ones. I told nobody, but they knew it was missing. Right about the same time, a coworker who was always trying to get me fired was telling someone she got about $100 in tips from her other job. They ended up firing her because they didn't trust that it wasn't her. When I was young, probably around age 9 or 10, I was walking home with my dog from a house around the block when he cut the corner and walked diagonally through the yard of this super mean old lady who lived at the end of our street. She was in her yard at the time tending to these really fancy-looking rose bushes she had growing in beds along the border with her neighbor. My dog was a very friendly golden retriever who didn't even really come near her and certainly didn't do anything threatening, but she sprayed the fuck out of him with some kind of insecticide or other chemical she was using on her roses. I ran back home with the dog and hosed him off. He coughed a bunch but seemed otherwise fine. I didn't tell my parents because somehow I thought I was going to get into trouble for letting the dog walk in her yard. I'm glad I didn't tell them, though, because I decided that night to sneak downstairs, out the half-bath window, and down the street to her yard, where I cut down every goddamn rose bush I could get my hands on. I found my adoption papers a few years ago when I was looking for a copy of my birth certificate. I know my birth mom. I just never had a relationship with her. My maternal grandmother took me in 2002. I never knew she adopted me. I just knew that one day I ended up living with her after telling her one day I don't want to go back home. I also found the letter that my mom wrote as to why she was giving me up. That one really hurt. I know where my missing friend is. She ran away 2 years ago and her family is still looking for her. She texted me after the first year. She's in Los Angeles. Not a huge secret in comparison to some of these answers, but I feel the guilt of it often. After my fiancé passed, I napped all the time for over a year. My aunt was calling me one day, but I just denied her call and went back to napping. It was my aunt calling because my grandma, who was very sick with cancer, wanted to say happy birthday a day before my birthday. Grandma died the next day. I should have picked up the damn phone. One of my closest co-workers, who is an integral part to our very large corporation, killed a man in his late teens and threw the body in a lake. He only got off on a technicality. I Googled his full name. It freaked me out at first, but I've kind of gotten over it. I wonder if anyone else knows. It happened 40+ years ago. He will retire soon, and then I might ask another coworker about it. When I was around 9 years old, I used my mom's credit card to sign up my shitty alcoholic stepfather for a porn website in hopes of starting a fight and her leaving him. FYI, she did leave after another year or so. Current stepdad is a real keeper. My wife and I aren't officially married. No one knows. We had a ceremony and everything, reception, the whole 9 yards. We just never did the official paperwork. We realized that since she's going back to school, it benefits her financially to go through financial aid as single rather than married. When she finishes up, we're going to head over to town hall and finish the last step. 2 days before my dad took his life, he called me telling me what he wanted to do. He had been calling me and telling me how depressed he was for months, and I was sick of hearing it and I hung up on him. I hung up on my suicidal father. He then killed himself on my 17th birthday. Everybody in the family thinks it was a coincidence that he took his life on my birthday, but I know the real reason. I've never told a single member of my family as I know they would blame me, especially my brother. Ever since he took his life, I have had this recurring nightmare of seeing my dad in a grocery store passing at the other end of the aisle. He's pushing an empty shopping cart and briefly looks at me at the other end of the aisle but keeps going. When I run to where he was now at the other end aisle. Rinse and repeat until I wake up screaming. Some secrets will haunt you until you die. I have a son. Nobody but me and the mother knows. The mother was a really, really good friend who was somewhat homely and never had a boyfriend, and was in her early 40s. She always wanted a husband and a child, but decided at this point if she couldn't get a husband, then she would have a child. $12,000 later, she gets artificially inseminated with a whopping 12% chance of it taking. Well, it doesn't take, and she's on a teacher's salary, and her dream of kids and marriage is drifting away. And especially with the kid, time is of the essence. So I stepped up, we hashed it all out, and we decided the story would be she got artificially inseminated and doesn't know the father. We went to a lawyer and paid a good amount to basically absolve me of responsibility. To this day, I see it like I donated to a bank and somebody used my sperm. It would have been $12K a pop every time she tried, but with this method, she could try as many times as it took. Luckily, it only took a couple tries. We'd wait till she was ovulating and I'd donate. So yeah, technically I have a son, but everybody thinks I'm childless. Most people in my family think that my mother recently died suddenly from complications due to cancer, but she really died from the toxic effects of oxycodone, morphine, fentanyl, and methamphetamines. Seems as though she just had herself a secret death party. I'm the spitting image of my grandpa on my dad's side. Both my parents are almost a foot shorter than me, but I'm almost the same height as him. When my mother got sick when I was a kid, my grandpa went to visit her daily for extended periods of time in the hospital. In his final months, she did the same. After he passed, we found out he kept a whole other family on the side in secret too. Looking back at my dad's military deployment history, it would also be dicey if she could have gotten pregnant by him around the appropriate time. Based on a collection of various hunches, I'm fairly convinced that I'm the product of an affair between my mother and my supposed grandfather. Funny, light-hearted story from my childhood. My little brother was in the shower and I could hear him singing. I put a coat on backward and a stocking cap pulled over my face and waited outside the bathroom door. He opened the door, still singing and dancing, and I did the Frankenstein thing, arms out, moaning, "Ah!" He screamed and fell backward, knocking the toilet completely over. Water went everywhere. The top of the toilet tank broke, the shower curtain ripped down, and him laying on the floor in the middle of all this. I ran back down the hall, coat and hat off, and sauntered back casually. By then my mother and father and our sisters were there, and everyone is like, "What the hell?" I've heard him tell this story as proof of the existence of ghosts. To this day, little feller is now a 52-year-old bank manager with 2 kids. He believes in ghosts. I don't feel a bit bad. It's not my secret, but my mom's, and I'm not hiding it from everyone, just the person to who it potentially matters the most. When my mom was in high school in the 60s, she had a long-term serious boyfriend named Jimmy. They were each other's first. They were together for years and were planning on getting married. He went away to college, and my mom stayed behind, but they were still together. You know what happened next. He cheated and got the new girl pregnant. He comes home to break the news to my mom. Abortion was not legal at the time. He basically says that he wants to be with my mom, but he has no choice but to marry this other girl. My mom was devastated. Here's the secret. My mom was also pregnant by him, but hadn't told him yet. She decided she wasn't ever going to tell him. Jimmy went on to marry the other girl and never knew my mom was also pregnant. She told me that she later threw herself down a flight of stairs to cause a miscarriage. My mom actually reconnected with Jimmy during the early days of Facebook. She didn't have an account but asked me to look for him using mine. He was still married to the same person. My mom was married to my dad. They wrote to each other for a while, using my account, and signed their messages saying, "I love you." My mom passed away a number of years ago. I think about this knowledge I have that Jimmy doesn't. This major life event thing that he doesn't even know happened could have changed the trajectory of many lives. I'm certainly not going to tell him. It's not my secret to tell. And that concludes our deep dive into the dark secrets hidden within the Ask Reddit community. We hope you found these stories as fascinating as we did. If you enjoyed this video and want more captivating content like this, give this video a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, don't forget to click on the notification bell so you'll be the first to know when we upload new videos. Lastly, a big thank you to all our amazing viewers for joining us today. Your support and engagement mean a lot to a small channel like ours. Once again, this is Reddit Story Hour. Stay curious, stay kind, and see you in the next video.